Hello. This is our Ballard High School advocacy project on the Green New Deal. I'm Sam Kerwin.
I'm Colin Moore.
I'm Jack Cousins.
I'm Oscar Hookman.
I'm Hayden King.
Okay. To start, we'll just the history of the new Green New Deal, and it's like what's led to this point. So at first, the term Green New Deal was coined by the Pulitzer Prize winner Thomas Friedman in January of 2007. And around this time, a bunch of Green New Deal groups were founded. One called the Green New Deal Group, which was founded in early 2007 and has published a lot and done a lot of work to get it spread awareness for it. And it was then major ideas of the Green New Deal were taken in Obama's 2008 campaign, but then with Republicans taking control of Congress, it went to the back burner and wasn't really brought up in the spotlight again, and was only really talked about by the Green Party in their presidential runs in 2012 and 2016. But then Bernie Sanders also added it to his platform, and that was the beginning of its like rise to the national spotlight. And so then after that, the Sunrise Movement did a lot of sit-ins on congressional leaders' offices, and AOC pledged to join them and introduce this resolution in Congress. And that's what she did with Markley, and they in early 2019 introduced this bill, but there was some problems with its introduction. They released an early copy that had a thing that said for all who are unable or unwilling to work, and it was talking about how they give aid, and the media had a heyday with that, like broadcasting how it's just gonna help lazy people, and it a waste of money. And there was also a joke in it about eliminating cows and airplanes, and that was taken out of context, and it was really bashed on national media, which really um, hurt it in Congress, and it was voted down. So now we'll talk
Yeah.
more about what's in it.
So the Green New Deal is focusing mainly on economic policies, such as using things like carbon tax and setting goals of zero net emissions by 2030.
Yeah. So it has two main things. It's getting us off of carbon um, emissions, right? Net zero by 2030. And also making sure that protecting people, because this is it's a New Deal thing. It's like a major transformation of our economy and the system, how we run our nation, like industrial wise and in all aspects of life, which will displace a lot of people's jobs and to prevent, like a lot of unemployment and unrest. It has these um, wonderful social programs like, so many social safety nets and healthcare, and making sure that job training for these jobs that will be available in clean industries, that anyone can get them, and they're like geared towards lower income and um, underrepresented groups.
Yeah, and that's another very important part of this is not only is it changing like our economy and how we do things, but it's also um, making sure it does this in a way that does not marginalize any groups, and in fact, it's promoting equality through change. Whereas in the past, great economic changes like the New Deal have left out certain groups and created vast inequality, like financial, economic inequalities in the U.S. that we have today, and is seeking to kind of fix some of those, which is another very important point.
Mhm.
Another way the Green New Deal is like the New Deal that FDR proposed back in the 1930s is it has a lot of like economic aspects. It has a goal of creating of raising the federal minimum wage. It also um, has some focus on like creating affordable housing and creating new jobs. Um, it also has a goal of uh, making education and college cheaper. Yeah, a lot of different economic policies as well.
Going beyond just creating new jobs, it has included in the initial resolution is a guarantee for 100% employment after a time, which is a lofty goal, but it also, have, great effects on the economy. And they have a path to get there through working in like the renewable energy industry.
Exactly. And this is important because a lot of people don't like climate change policies because they think it will negatively impact the economy the way it switches away from fossil fuels, which we currently depend on a lot. But so this tackles that problem by making sure or pointing out how it will create jobs and making sure it will help the economy as well.
Right. And over the next 10 years, it's supposed to be a complete transition, which is quick. It's understandable for people to be concerned about that. However, projections show that there will actually be a surplus of new jobs created through renewable energy, through this rapid mobilization and transition in the economy.
Yeah, and the Green New Deal also provides like, with making college cheaper and such, it's preparing people to enter the workforce, not just creating these jobs with like no one to go into them. So it's like the whole process of like creating new jobs and also getting people to be able to fill those jobs. So it's very well thought out and kind of creating a process where we can get to that like 100% employment goal that they put out in the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hayden, do you want to talk some about how like the struggles it has to get past and the hurdles it has to overcome, I guess?
So currently, under Biden, it's looking like it's probably not going to pass within the next 4 years, and probably not within the next 2 years. Definitely, even though the Democrats have control of the legislature and the presidency, um, it has been endorsed by 111 legislators, um, include most of them in the House, but some in the Senate too. Um, Also, it has been criticized by Joe Manchin and Dianne Feinstein, which would leave it with 48 votes at most in the Senate, assuming no Republicans vote for it, which is a pretty good assumption. So, when we talk about what is likely to pass for climate change legislation in the next 4 years, we're going to be looking at the Biden plan, which Biden has said is based off of the Green New Deal. Specifically, when he was pressed by Trump at the Cleveland presidential debate, Trump was trying to pin him to the Green New Deal after Fox News started really going after it, calling it socialism, saying they were banning cows. Biden made several statements. He said that he did not support it. He said that it was a good start or something like that. It was brought up several times and he got a little bit flustered, but he later clarified that he has his own plan based off of the Green New Deal, which has been tacitly endorsed by Evan Weber, the co founder of the Sunrise Movement, which is one of the main groups advocating for the Green New Deal. So, with regard to the similarities and differences between the Biden plan, which it definitely could pass, within the next year, 4 years, versus the Green New Deal, which probably is unlikely to pass because moderate Democrats just don't really support it to the same extent, or at least moderate Democrats who are in the Senate and House.
Mhm.
When it comes to approval ratings, it is actually quite popular, but that is no, that won't do it much good. So with regard to what the Biden plan actually is, it's officially called Biden Plan for a Clean Energy Revolution and Environmental Justice. And most notably, it does not include some of the other big ticket aspects of the Green New Deal that aren't directly related to the environment, such as free college, the federal jobs guarantee, and single payer healthcare. It aims for net zero emissions by 2050 instead of 2030 in the Green New Deal. It calls for $1.7 trillion invested by the federal government over the next 10 years in renewable energy, clean technology, climate change mitigation, and aims for $5 trillion over that same time period in total investment, counting private sector and state and local governments. It also notably uses, the plan, part of the plan, which is partially things that Biden can do on his own and partially legislative goals. He aims to use diplomacy in a greater role to solve climate change, to find solutions, which is, to my knowledge, absent in the Green New Deal, which is basically just a legislative proposal. Um, his plan, Biden's plan, uses the executive powers too. He has already done that to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, which AOC has called for. I don't know if it is in the Green New Deal specifically, but it also notably features carbon capture and storage, which is, among people who are more knowledgeable about environmental issues, that is definitely a matter of debate. Some people want to be more aggressive in phasing out fossil fuels, don't see carbon capture and storage as a good solution, or see people talking about it as a possible distraction that will let us use more fossil fuels, whether or not the technology actually gets to the point where it become a feasible solution. So that would be a point of contention, but I don't think it would be a deal breaker for the bill. I think more progressive Democrats are going to go for it because it is most of the way there as far as the bread and butter environmental policy, green energy, stuff like that. And then finally, it has a commitment to going after fossil fuel companies and environmental justice, which part of which could be done through the judiciary, through the attorney general, the Justice Department, legal stuff. And in his plan, he specifically mentions Flint, Michigan, and Harlan, Kentucky, which are two communities that have very poor drinking water, and that's examples he gives of environmental justice in his plan. So I guess now I'll get into who supports it, who's against it. The most important thing to note here is that each component part of the Green New Deal is very popular, with maybe one or two exceptions depending on how fine of a point you break it up to. But as in terms of the headline policies, all of them have over 2/3 approval. The only ones that don't are reducing coal mining jobs, which is 55%, and spending trillions of dollars, which is 30% approval rating.
Yeah, that's the main problem.
Which is that's kind of like an erroneous data point, right?
Yeah.
Kind of insignificant.
Yeah, because people agree with all of the ideas behind like the Green New Deal individually, but once they see the upfront cost of trillions of dollars, they go that they're less they're less confident in what they said before.
Yeah.
Which I just I mean it's gonna have a price, and I think people need to understand that is that no matter what we do, in the end we're gonna have to spend trillions of dollars either way. Any way we
Yeah.
do this.
The cost of climate change climate change's effect on the US will also be extremely high. So if we start doing something about it now, the cost will theoretically be lower.
Yeah, that's totally true. However, a lot of with Republicans, I think a lot of them struggle to see that, or at least agree with that. One thing I looked into was if the Green New Deal could be passed through budget reconciliation, which essentially is passing a bill in Congress through a simple majority. I think just 50 Senate votes, and it also prevents the filibuster. So that would give Democrats a lot more power in the House. However, that can only be used once a year, and I don't know exactly if it has been used already this year. But if they could use it, the concern is that it's considered unconstitutional if there is any sort of deficit from it in the 10 years following the passing of the bill. Now, the Green New Deal is a 10-year plan, and so before the U.S. starts benefiting from it, there could be some sort of a short-term deficit, and
Yeah, for sure.
if there would be, the Supreme Court could rule that as unconstitutional. And with a very conservative Supreme Court as we have right now, conservative leaning,
Yeah.
it would be very likely to be revoked.
Yeah, that reconciliation path definitely seems like it would be useful, but also seems kind of risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely the safer option is to go with something more like the Biden plan, which can agree with more people and be passed in a more conventional way. But I also feel like there's definitely problems with the Biden plan, and I think that taking away some of the more radical, what some people consider radical parts of the Green New Deal would actually have a negative effect in the long run. Because both the Biden plan and the Green New Deal have the same goal of net zero in the end. But the Green New Deal, with stuff such as free healthcare, cheaper college, has ways of supporting the people who will lose their jobs in the fossil fuel industries, right?
Yeah.
Or something like the Biden plan. I mean, I'm not an expert on the Biden plan as much, but without stuff like that, even though people may not like the idea up front of paying a lot for like free healthcare,
Yeah.
it would help people who lose their job, and then because they lose their job initially, to the transference away from oil and such, would also lose their healthcare providers.
Yeah, I think it's important to face the fact that people will lose their job, right? This, at least in the short term. In the long run, this will be worth it. But um, it's expected to. I mean, coal miners will lose jobs, right? Oil, like this fossil fuel industry, just that is such a major part of our nation's economy. So the shift will be brutal and it will cause unrest, which will be, a problem in itself. Like in France, when they introduced tax on gas, they had protests for months and months straight. And so you can imagine the reaction once people lose their jobs to this, even though it's, the long-term benefits are worth it.
Yeah,
definitely. And it's almost similar in a way to a lot of economies or industries that fell behind with like the tech industry boom, which started in the 90s and 2000s. It left this huge population of essentially like the white working class, which was a large portion of it, who felt really left behind, and so they really stuck to this conservative course and conservative voting against it. And so that could happen with the Biden plan that's not as sweeping and supporting education and the economy as well. Because with all this technology, like the technological progress toward clean energy solutions has been nothing short of remarkable recently. Like wind capacity has increased more than fourfold in the last decade. Solar power while still a very small part of the total energy mix, it is increased at an even faster rate. And prices for both have dropped to the point where they're increasingly competitive with fossil fuels. And so 10 years ago, an electric car was a curiosity, but now more like millions of them have been sold in the US. And we have the leading electric automotive company. And so we have all these great opportunities for just like expanding our economy and stuff, but we can't let people fall behind. And that is a danger with the Biden plan.
True. The Biden plan is a little bit of like a compromise.
Yeah, and you can't really compromise in this, this situation, right?
Exactly. It would definitely be ideal to get the Green New Deal to pass.
Yeah. I guess it's the conflict between whether getting anything out right now is better or trying for a slimmer chance to have a real solution that would have a much greater probability of actually in the future helping us, right?
Exactly. So like if you like to get the Green New Deal passed, there are like a lot of different things that anyone could do to like help that you could do to help. You could join an interest group such as the Sunrise Movement. You can write letters to government officials to try and get certain things passed in your community as well. Joining the Sunrise Movement will help a lot with organizing that sort of thing. The Sunrise Movement has a lot of political actions that they do, such as phone banking and letter writing. They also have done political actions such as wide awake movements, where that have been where you it's sort of like a political march of sorts, except you do it really early in the morning. There's one that the Sunrise Movement in Seattle organized and did back in October, where they went to one of the Washington government politician's house at 4 a.m. and woke them up, and helps a lot.
Cool. I think that's the end of this little podcast. Just would like to reiterate the importance of action with climate change and the virtues of the Green New Deal in getting climate action passed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell your representatives how you feel, right? Just
Yeah.
let them know. Even if you don't have a specific policy you want them to pass, just telling them, I support this, and I hope you do too.
Well, and remind them that climate change action has an over 80% approval rating. Okay, it's not fringe. It is actually incredibly popular in Washington State, probably even more so. So while it may seem like sort of a fringe issue, at least among government people, media people, senators, it actually has very wide popular support.
Certainly, and chances are, especially if you live on the West Coast, you may have been affected in some way or another, whether it's relatively insignificantly or very significantly by the fires, for example, recently in the last few summers that have forced so many people to move and lose their homes. And there are similar situations around the world in Australia, Brazil, Russia, and also storms, especially in the global south and Central America and south of the United States. And so all of these are very tied into global warming and trending to become worse, and will continue to affect everyone, whether more significantly or less significantly, but that they will definitely affect everyone if we don't take action soon.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.